All right. So, yeah, we have an online database with social services, actually. So, one of the things we can do is we can then reuse talks, and it becomes part of other training, potentially. The only thing is that, because it's online, if we talk about any particular cases, I will edit it out. So you don't need to worry about that. I'll worry about that afterwards. But yes, that's one of the technological things that we can make the most, really, so we don't have to go through the same things each time. So here's talking about a specific part of AMBIT. Some of you might have done the training, others maybe haven't come across AMBIT that much so far in the training. It stands for Adaptive Mentalization-Based Integrated Treatment. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. It was developed for adolescents, and it was developed in particular cases where people had a poor relationship to services. The engagement was an issue. It meant that teams often would hot potato, or the networks would fragment quite quickly. So a lot of there's the AMBIT wheel, really, and only a quarter of that is about tools and about interaction, specifically about working with your client. There's other sectors of working within your team and how to strengthen teamwork, working within your networks and how to strengthen networks. And the last quarter is about how we learn, how we remember what we've already learned. And a bit that you're talking about locality, AMBIT, the ethos of AMBIT really is that you kind of adapt the tools from AMBIT into your team, because there's expertise in the team that we're already doing lots of things. It doesn't need AMBIT to come along and teach us how to do anything different. It's just trying really to bring it all together, to make sense of it all. And it also means that when it goes into different teams, it adapts, it changes. So AMBIT, Otis are using bits of AMBIT through their care. We talked about positive partnership, team went into there. And there's different aspects that become more important and more, this bit's useful. Maybe we're already doing this bit, or we have the similar thing. So it adapts as we go on. So it's up to you, really, what you want to do with it. So this morning I wanted to bring a particular aspect, and it's the mentalizing stance, just to see something I found useful as a therapist, as an art therapist. I think it's something I also use when I go into an assessment. So see whether it makes any sense to what you do and what your roles are. Okay. I'll talk a little bit about myself and why mentalising sort of makes sense to me. I've just come across it. I used to be within a specialised personality disorder. I was sort of leading it up for a while, and we had a mentalising base. That was our core, really, of where we come from. Mentalising is that it's an interest, really, in people's intentions, what's going on, people's sort of ideals, people's motivations and drives. So it's our own, sort of knowing what our own intentions are, what we kind of aiming to do here. It's also interesting in other people's. So it's about thoughts and feelings. They're all part of our intentions and drives. Some of it is about guesswork, because we can't read other people's minds. So when we're sort of mentalising about what's going on for another person, it's a best guess. So that means we have to sort of tolerate that, not quite knowing, and be flexible in our thinking. If we become too rigid in our thinking, we've lost mentalising really, and it's a classic case, you know, someone looks at me funny, and I get a little defensive and aggressive. I've gone offline with my mentalising. It can also happen that people disconnect as well, so you can tell that they're not really engaged with what's going on, and they might be dissociating slightly. So there's a range of non-mentalising stances, and we all lose our mentalising sometimes. One of the examples is sort of road rage. If someone cuts you up, you're likely in that moment to very quickly go through a whole process of fear and then anger. And when you become emotionally aroused, your mentalising goes offline. And you might do things that you wouldn't normally have done.
It's fear, anger, and then embarrassment.
Yeah. Anger and embarrassment.
Yeah. Oh gosh, did I really just say that?
It's not fiesta.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a process by which we take stock of thoughts and feelings, and we estimate other people's internal states. So a mentalising stance is just to be interested in that. And as a therapist, I think I found it quite liberating, really, because I thought what I'm doing with my clients is we're monitoring each other, really. They're reading me and I'm reading them, and we're in this kind of dance together. And if I'm interested in their mentalising, I'm trying to strengthen their ability, sometimes to read me. So, you know, I have to become more, I'm not going to sit there with a blank screen, I have to become more sort of animated and showing, yes. I need to pick up when they seem to have gone wrong, or where I've become confused about where they are, what's going on for them. I need to try and pick that up, and so we can try to understand it together. I think the other thing, as an art therapist, sort of interested in anyway, it's what we do anyway, that when we look at some art, we look at it in different ways, we have different perspectives on it. So when we talk about art, what we're doing is there's our joint attention. We're mentalising together. We're making sense of things together. And we're saying things about ourselves in doing that, and about our thought processes. So the mentalising stance is sometimes portrayed as a table, because it's got 4 legs to it. But I portrayed it as a dance, because there is something very fluid about it. So these are what would have been the 4 legs, but there are 4 stances. So, intending to dance with someone, they're in the unknown, really. So we need to be curious and inquisitive. There's Columbo up here. People remember Columbo. But, you know, Columbo's stance was always to be in a state of confusion. You know, how do we get out of this? You know, trying to work this out. There's something going on here. So that, you know, basically approaching the situation. But when we meet someone, we don't know really what their intentions are. We could assume, we could read their Paris notes, and we could assume, I know exactly where they're coming from, but we don't really know. And, you know, the first impressions can be really good, but we can also pick up things that aren't right, therefore. So we need to be sort of always open to being shown to be wrong in our assumptions. There's also this kind of, you know, when we're dancing, we sort of have a stable base to move around. Again, that's like you're trying to keep a balance, and how, and use that in this metaphor really, is working with someone that you're always open to what aren't we exploring here, what aren't we talking about. So I'll come on to this in a bit later, but if someone's always talking about their internal states or their feelings, and there's no kind of interest about the outside world, then that's something really to try to move into, to try to shift into. If someone's always talking about the external world, they did this, and so-and-so did this, and it becomes a bit like a soap opera, but they're not talking about feelings at all. That's, it's the other way, really. You can move that direction. If someone's always talking about the past, it's thinking about what about the present? How does that affect you now? So this sort of holding the balance is really, it's giving you a bit of a map to explore, or to try to think, well, where is the map, rather than just being totally focused on what someone brings you. And of course what we're trying to do in a mentalizing stance is support mentalizing. So it's actually recognising when you see it. And it's to try to halt or stop non-mentalizing states. So non-mentalizing states, I said there are sort of a range to them, really. One is crisis, so when people are very emotionally activated, that we all tend to go offline a bit. If we're heightened, anxiety, getting up and talking in front of a group of people, my mentalising ability might be a bit slowed up or corrupted. Or if someone, something's happened to someone and they're in a state of anger, that actually to try to get back online, mentalising, that emotional arousal needs to come down somehow. And we do it all the time with each other. We kind of help to moderate or regulate each other's emotions. So, if your friend come up to you and they were really upset, you kind of would react by, what's happened? You kind of be accepting of their emotional state initially, and you'd be showing that you're curious and wanting to know, and possibly also you'd be starting to work it out a little bit as well. So and so said this to me, and it's outrageous. Or did they really mean that? So some of that might be coming in. So there's a kind of process in the stance. Equally, might work with people that become very rigid in their thinking. So they're not necessarily in crisis. Their emotion is not necessarily heightened. It might be the opposite, actually, that emotion seems to have just disappeared. And it's all about thoughts. And it's very rigid thoughts. There's no flexibility in there. Again, it's a non-mentalizing stance. So the way we react to that would be different. We're in this kind of dance with people. So the way you might react to that is then to sort of think about the metaphor as stepping away a little bit. So we're questioning, we're trying to find, get them to sort of explain a bit more. And hopefully in there, the sort of rigid, fixed sense of things starts to open up, that everything isn't so obvious and defined. So I wanted to get the impression that actually there's different places we can move. And really important to support mentalising when we see it as well. When someone's been able to work out that normally, see you back. Thank you.
Thank you for
when someone's been able to change something of their behaviour when they often lose it, that they might react in a certain way at a certain time, which thinking of an example, that a certain interaction with someone might lead to them breaking and being quite destructive or quite angry. been working for a while and they've managed to do something in a different way, then it really needs reinforcing, really needs sort of support with that. That's been something that they've managed to hold on and not just lose it to their anger or lose it to their emotions, that they managed to think about a long-term plan for them. So that's really, supporting their mentalising in here. So this is, I know it's an overview, it's very sort of brief really. This is like my dance mat that I've put together. So trying to capture some of the areas that we might work on. We've got mentalising in the middle, that's what we're looking for. What often we're trying to avoid, I suppose, is this fight, flight, freeze. It's where we actually switch into a different part of our mind. One part switches off, one part switches on, and it is where we all use mentalising. It's a sort of survival part of us that becomes very fixed, very rigid, very inflexible, and we need to come back down into being more reflective, more contemplative. So if we're going too far up here in our kind of dance, we need to sort of use these areas to try to pull back again. So emotional regulation, so we're trying to soothe the situation. Arousal regulation, so that we're being careful, and sometimes this can happen when when someone is panicking, we can start to panic, and we might chuck more stuff at them, more stuff to be dealing with. So we need to be really careful that we're not actually giving them more arousal sort of items to handle. We're trying to soothe, we're trying to sort of simplify. And it might be that we need to do bits of work. We need to sort things out, but it's timing when they're ready. We're not trying to do it too quickly. But equally, if we're really down here, if someone is not seeming to react in a way that they're about to be evicted, or they're engaging in certain behaviours that might lead, to sort of serious consequences for them, but they don't seem to care. People say that, I don't care. That it might be that we need to try to bring in some more emotional reaction, try to find something which does make them feel activated and care. So working with people that self-harm, I can kind of see that sometimes in conversations people just don't care about the risk. In fact, it's almost like they're flaunting it. And that other people with them are starting to feel emotionally aroused. And they can sort of witness this but switch off from it. And that's a kind of dance that's a bit dangerous. You don't really want to get into that kind of dance. So it's trying to find ways of getting that concern and care back into them, so that you're not carrying it all. Okay, and these are the poles that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So some people talk about what's happened to them in the past a lot, and it lingers, and it might well have consequences to the present. So we can draw on that, and we can look at, so how's that affecting you now? So what do we need to think about now? What's going on now? I think more rarely, I've not come across it, but there is one person that comes to mind who it's like their past doesn't really exist, but very much in the present, and I'm often wondering what's gone on there. And when we go, it becomes more obvious when we explore into the past a little bit. There's a wall that comes up quite quickly, and they're protecting something that fires off things in my head, what might be going on.
I think there's all sorts of reasons, isn't there, that people we work with for the past is often not present.
Yeah.
Either from the person's own choosing because of what might have taken place, but also because sometimes history just gets lost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
People have such transient lives and constantly moving, or sort of regularly moving, and each bit kind of doesn't move with them sometimes, or kind of gets truncated as they move continue. There's lots of reasons, and I think that's quite a feature or an aspect or factor of a lot of the work that we do, isn't it, about kind of where is a person's past.
Yeah.
It can also be about communication skills and abilities, can't it, in terms of someone's level of ability to recall or verbalise or to think back, and maybe the present is an easier thing to, just more tangible.
Yeah, abstract.
Yeah, so it could just be that, couldn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite a loaded thing, because I suppose we could also have future in here, and whether that's accessible to someone, whether someone feels able to sort of really plan or think about it.
Yeah, I mean, aspiration is, it's a really loaded, particularly people working, in a support circle. When you ask people what this individual aspirations are, it's just not uneasy.
But these are polls, so we're trying to sort of keep a balance, and not, if it starts to feel like it's becoming too activating, trying to sort of move backwards and forwards really. And it's that movement that is really important. That's what I hold in my mind, that it's enough to try to keep someone, trying to keep things moving and flexible, because then things are still open and possible in the future. So yeah, external, internal, which, some people have a language for internal processes, other people don't, and it can be enough really just try to broaden a bit of vocabulary about what goes on inside thoughts and feelings. But say some people, it's all about external events, and this happened and then that happened. So then, how to actually make sense of that, how to interpret that, what does that mean to me or to us? Self-other, on a similar line, really, if someone isn't talking about themselves at all, it's all about other people, or if someone is only thinking, and this is probably more common, I think, only aware of their own reactions and thoughts and feelings, and the world does things to them. So there's very little kind of mentalising of the other abilities of that, generally trying to bring them to think, so what do you think was in their mind when? Why do you think they said that? And sometimes it just lands on the rocks, I think, those kind of things, because someone just isn't wanting to go there very quickly. But after a while, someone might entertain that kind of speculation. It can be sort of, in talking to someone, just getting someone intrigued about what's going on in your own mind. That's interesting, because I was thinking this way about it. So you're just giving an example that their way of seeing things isn't the only way, and you're just trying to broaden that scope for them a little bit. And thoughts, feelings, kind of covered, I suppose, in different ways. But yeah, some people might it might all be in the thoughts and no feelings. Sometimes the other way around. There are other poles you could add, that you could adapt it, make your own sort of dance map from it, really. There are other ones that people talk about. What I haven't done, but what I could put down here as well, is some of this is dependent on our rapport with someone. It's our kind of engagement or attachment. And that gives us a guide of how much we can actually pull, how much is someone going to tolerate us maybe being a little bit challenging, a little bit not totally with them, validating their thoughts and feelings. And there's a process of that really. It's likely that when you're first meeting someone that you're trying to really show you're trying hard to get where they're coming from, and you're trying to validate them. And after a while, maybe it feels like you can, in the relationship, would tolerate you being able to step away a bit and be a bit more challenging to their processes and thought processes. Okay. So that, in a nutshell, is the kind of model for the mentalizing stance. I know it's been a whistle-stop tour, really. Saying use it in therapy, but I'm also aware of it pretty much all interactions that I have now. Let's say when I do initial assessments, I'm still very much interested in people's mentalising and where they are, and what's happening to my own mentalising. It's infectious, losing mentalising. If you're with someone that isn't mentalising, it's really difficult to mentalise with them. That's why I think this kind of map is important. It's just to check out where am I, what am I reacting to here. So I don't know are there any thoughts, is it useful, is it not useful, does it sort of...
I really like your dance analogy. I was just thinking, you're saying AMBIT has at a table, and that feels quite fixed.
Yeah.
Table legs are very fixed, and the dance is very fluid, and just something that struck me that the way you're describing it feels like it fits correctly. And why is it described like that in AMBIT? It's meant to be seen as a phrase that's going between things.
It's the idea that we need to do all four, otherwise the table's wobbly.
Right.
So for the relationship to be kind of stable, we need to be covering all 4 points. But there is also the ethos in AMBIT that these are the tools that people make them their own. So I like dance. I did think that on a reflection of the highlights of the year, this being the Christmas. Any other thoughts? I stunned you all.
Is there books or anything that we can actually find looking into it a little bit more?
Yeah, there's loads of resources. So Sue sent out the minutes, and there's links in there to the AMBIT wiki pages. So there's some of it's on YouTube. The other people presenting mentalising stance. There's a link there. There's links to AMBIT itself. So yeah, there is a book. There's 2 copies of AMBIT book in the library. But they do say, because AMBIT is adaptive and it moves on, that it's always going to be old when they go to printing books. So the wiki site is much more up to date, and you can keep, things are very fresh there. And yeah, so and we're also developing our own manual. So things like this video that goes on it, there's been talk about doing something about team meetings, and just thinking about team meetings and how we can improve on that. That could then be on the site as well. Yeah, there's different things we've put on there already.